Hey, welcome back. I'm Lai. Tesla recently announced opening its third Gigafactory in Shanghai, China. Although many details of the factory remain unclear at this moment, such as the size of the factory or the source of its investment, Tesla is going to benefit a great deal from Gigafactory 3, no doubt. However, the choice of Shanghai as Tesla's first Gigafactory outside the United States still baffles some thoughtful observers around the world. So, why Shanghai? Well, when it comes to making sense of the reason why Shanghai is chosen to be the location of Gigafactory 3, many seems to buy into the demand side of the story. The rationale goes like this. China has the biggest market for Tesla outside the United States. 25% of Tesla's total sales worldwide went to China in 2017, and therefore, choosing Shanghai is a no-brainer. However, if you consider the fierce competition around the world for Gigafactory 3, one doesn't need to look further to realize that Europe is also a good location for a Gigafactory, especially considering the fact that building Gigafactory in Shanghai would delay building factories elsewhere for at least 2 years. It's only fair to compare China with Europe as a whole, not just the countries in Europe. In that regard, Germany, France, Portugal, Spain, Finland, Estonia, almost all countries in the European Union want a piece of Tesla to show the world that it's forward-looking and innovative. So why Shanghai? For the longest time, China has been the world's manufacturing hub for various products ranging from the t-shirts we wear every day to the smartphones we carry with us all the time. Yet China does not have the biggest demand for those products. America has. Therefore, the demand side of the story alone is hardly convincing. It is the supply side of the story that matters more. Little known to consumers around the world, China has passed America in 2009 to be the biggest manufacturer of automobiles in the world, and most importantly, China has, along with that, built a complete supply chain of automobile parts. Out of the 80 million cars sold in 2017, almost 30 million are sold in China. This is what Gigafactory Shanghai is really about. Building a Gigafactory in China exposes Tesla to a variety of cheap yet quality supplies in China. But if my explanation stopped here, it will not do justice to either Tesla or to China because I have been talking about automobile industry in general. If we're talking about electric vehicles industry in particular, China is even more advantageous. As many of you guys know, parts that constitute an EV are completely different comparing to an internal combustion engine car. For example, there is no need for transmission and therefore a gear stick in Tesla. Speed of a Tesla is controlled entirely by its software. Therefore, building EVs require a different set of supply chain networks. Since battery production is the bottleneck of current EV supply chain, let's zoom into that. A typical EV battery value chain looks like this. It starts with raw material production, then goes on to cell component production, cell production, and finally ends with battery pack production and EV production. I'll leave recycling to a future video. If we look at every segment along this value chain, you'd be surprised how prevalent the Chinese are every step of the way. 4 critical raw materials for building a lithium-ion battery are cobalt, graphite, silicon, and lithium. China is a significant supplier of them all, and it has been building strong relationships with governments all over the world to secure raw materials it doesn't have enough. For example, China has 6% of the world's cobalt, but 60% of the world's refined cobalt supply because of the acquisition of a cobalt mine in Africa by this company. In terms of lithium-ion battery production, the Chinese battery maker CATL has also surpassed Tesla to become the biggest lithium-ion battery plant in the world, contracted by Daimler, the parent company of Mercedes. We can even go deeper if we want to. China has a significant lead in making cathode materials, anode materials, and the electrolyte that goes into a typical EV battery. All in all, China has formidable investments in lithium-ion battery productions and has been putting a lot of effort into making EVs. I have no doubt that Tesla factory in Shanghai will prove to be Tesla's most important investment in years. Finally, if you think that I'm not going to talk about the most questioned aspect of Shanghai Gigafactory, you're mistaken. Many people are asking me who's going to pay for that factory. I can assure you, Tesla has plenty of options. If you read the reports done by Bloomberg, it suggests that Tesla is most probably going to raise debt to fund Gigafactory 3. While raising debt is one of the options, there are better options out there in my opinion. The first group of potential investors are the battery makers in China. CATL, for example, is the biggest lithium-ion battery maker in the world and could co-invest in Gigafactory 3 like Panasonic. And to be fair, the reason why it has passed Tesla to be the biggest battery maker in the world is that it's contracted by Daimler to make batteries for future Mercedes. So there will be a conflict of interest. But I still think it could build some kind of co-investment relationship with Tesla. Under this group, there are also several other possibilities, BYD, Optimum Nano being two other options. The second group of potential investors come from the big tech companies, namely Tencent, Baidu, and Alibaba. Among them, Tencent is the most probable because it has already invested $1.7 billion into Tesla last year in exchange for 5% of Tesla stock. Baidu is also possible because it has a huge focus on autonomous driving. Lastly, many of you might have noticed that Tesla Gigafactory 3 is signed between Tesla, the Shanghai government, as well as this company called Lingang Group. Lingang Group is a state-owned development group that invests in potential projects. Therefore, Lingang Group is also a potential candidate. However, Lingang Group does not have enough money and interest to pay for Gigafactory by itself. Therefore, if it happens, it would be in a form of co-investment or a matching fund. Finally, I want to come back to the demand side of the story because there is something exciting about that. Due to the nature of the Chinese market, Gigafactory 3 will be focusing on consumer-friendly models like Model 3 and Model Y. Yes, you heard me right, Model Y. At the time Gigafactory 3 is completed, Model Y will be ready for production, and since it would be using the same tool as Model 3, it could be made in Shanghai and sold directly to the Chinese market. Overall, building a Gigafactory in Shanghai is a great news. I was recently traveling in China, and I can tell you firsthand how determined the Chinese are in the EV and the battery production industry. I had a conversation with a local taxi driver in Shenzhen and got to know that the entire 30,000 taxis along with all the public buses in Shenzhen currently are electric, completely electric. Just imagine the volume of lithium-ion batteries that must be produced in order to make it happen. It's amazing. With China's strong foothold in the EV upstream supply chain, I have no doubt that Tesla will do well in China, and this Gigafactory will prove itself to be the most successful investment of Tesla for years. Alright, thank you all so much for watching. As always, follow me at Lake Creatives if you want to interact with me or ask me questions. I always answer questions on Twitter at Lake Creatives. Also, I'd like to thank my Patreon supporter. I would like to thank Sean, Milan, Chris, Richard, Alexander, Erasmus, Pitt, Simpan, Tyler, Zegron, Richard, Badu, Justin, Yong'an, Daniel, Johannes, Thomas, and C3POs for supporting me on Patreon. My idea for Patreon has always been to perhaps in the future to make enough to hire an assistant for video production so that I can make more and better content for you guys. So definitely consider pledging $1 or $2 if you would like to help me with that. Alright, that's it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, I'm Lai. I'll catch you guys later.